Hey guys, welcome back. We have a new week of energy to get into, and this is the week, this month, where things really start to heat up. We've got some real dynamic and explosive energy coming in as we hit the midpoint of our week and proceed through the weekend. We have a very big and powerful and fiery full moon in Sagittarius that's happening this week that will actually be a grand trine in fire signs, as Mars and Chiron are in exact trine together this week in Leo and Aries. That means that when the moon moves through Sagittarius for our full moon, bam, we're going to have a grand trine of fire that is perhaps inflaming things even more out there. We also have a Mars-Uranus square in fixed signs building all week as well. That's a real volatile, explosive, dynamic energy. And yeah, you may just want to proceed with a bit of caution. There could be some just like significant, like shocking, weird, random events playing out. And I think people are going to have a hard time keeping a handle on things as we move through the week. This is a lot of tension that is heading right for a breaking point. On Monday, we actually also have Jupiter concluding his transit of the sign of Gemini, entering the sign of Cancer, still in a conjunction with Mercury, who's also in the sign of Cancer. That's a big vibe shift, and we've got to talk about that. That's going to be shifting things a bit now as we move forward. However, being in the first couple of degrees of the sign of Cancer, that means that Mercury and Jupiter this week are also in a square to Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries. Cardinal square, that is requiring, I think, some type of give and take. There could be some difficult endings going on this week. There could be certain things that are required to come to an end, to be released, to be surrendered in order for some type of growth or forward movement or momentum to be able to begin to occur. We've got a very strong Chiron energy going on this week as well. There could be just some painful, difficult stuff that we're moving through, but there is like something restorative, and the way that things are ultimately being redirected right now, I do think will be beneficial moving forward. But things could get a little bit bumpy this week. We've got a lot to talk about, you guys. Let's get into the report, take a closer look at where things are orienting us as we move through the week this week, and how things are pulling themselves together as we enter the week on Monday and Tuesday. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. Today is Monday, June 9th, 2025. My name is Aubrey. This is your astrological outlook of the day, where we are narrating the shift of the ages. In this video, we are going to talk about, kind of get a sense of how the energy is functioning throughout the course of this entire week. And then specifically, we're going to talk about what we are moving into as we enter the week, Monday and Tuesday, what's unfolding, what's going on out there, and what it might mean for us. We also have a tarot reading that I am going to do for the collective at the end of this video. I like to tap the energy field for more than one modality whenever I am doing these energy overviews, just to get an alternative energetic perspective on what's going on out there. So we're going to do that at the end as well. There could be some messages in there for you, but we've got a lot of astrology to get into. Things are definitely like turned back on this first 10 days. Well, as we move into this week, this is sort of when things really start to heat back up, and tension, I would say, is definitely building. But the first week, at least, of June was kind of feeling a bit like an energetic void. Like, we didn't have many transits going on. Like, things were kind of just slow and relaxed. Like, the transits that we did have playing out were calling for like leisure and recreation. The only true, I feel like, significance going on this first 7 days of the month of June has been in terms of these revelations, things that we're finding out, things being exposed. We do have really kind of like an energetic X-ray vision going on right now and throughout the course of this entire Gemini season, because of the transits that were present with the Gemini new moon and the trine to Pluto. So all month long really has been like lifting up the lid, looking under the surface, the gears in the machine, like seeing what's really been going on, a lot of revelations. And I think that we may be heading towards some more of that as we move throughout the course of this week. But there's definitely something going on this week, you guys, that is like hyper stimulating, could be kind of chaotic. Energy sort of like frazzled out there, very impulsive and it's just kind of like explosive, volatile, eruptive. Mars square Uranus, we don't have this energy all the time. This is happening in fixed signs. Mars's energy, Mars's anger, Mars's aggression. Uranus is things happening suddenly, shockingly, unexpectedly. This is a more accident prone week if you're not being careful, I will say that. And actually, as we enter the report as well, I also want to say the absolute best way that we can ever use any type of harsh Mars-Uranus transit, specifically the square, is to be the generators of our own creative change. Okay? Because in like its highest capacity, that's really what this energy calls for. It calls for the initiation, like Mars, the action-oriented quality of change. And in the sign of Leo, where Mars is like of creative change especially, so the more that we can do this week to actively change or make changes that we've been needing to make, like actively, consciously participate in changing something, some aspect, some dynamic, some situation, some relationship, something in our lives, you could perhaps help to offset maybe just like some of the more, again, like volatile or just shocking or disruptive ways that this energy tends to manifest, doing that very thing. I mean, this is an energy right now about, at its core, I mean, it's the lightning striking the tower, right? We talk about how Uranus energy is represented through, in tarot, a lot of times through the tower card, and that's the lightning striking the tower and the free fall that results. But when we've got Mars coming in like that, it really can just like hit out of nowhere, but it is for the purpose of releasing us from something, for freeing us from something. Liberation is ultimately also the name of the game when we're talking about Uranian energy. And so Uranus in the sign of Taurus right now, this is just like my parrot on repeat over and over and over again for like the entire time, like 5 years now that I've been doing this channel. Uranus in the sign of Taurus, removing blockages to growth. Mars coming in the sign of Leo and hitting that square, that's a wrecking ball to anything that is functioning to like block, obstruct, limit, restrain the potential for things to grow, expand, and move forward right now in alignment with whatever cosmic plan God, Great Spirit, universe is requiring to be implemented at this point in time. So that being said, I think there's probably going to be some big disruptive changes that could be happening this week coming out of nowhere, and we've got that square going on. Now, that is not the only square that we have going on throughout the course of our week this week. As I mentioned in my intro, we have a big vibe shift going on this week. I said at the beginning of the month, we've got a lot of planetary shifts happening this month. We have 6 planets changing signs. Jupiter leaves Gemini, enters the sign of Cancer on Monday to get our week started. And we have another vibe shift. This is a pretty significant vibe shift. Jupiter takes like a year about to transit a sign, so we are going to be in this energy for a minute. We're going to be talking about it throughout the duration of the time that we are in the Jupiter Cancer energy, and that starts now as of Monday. However, because of the current placements of both Saturn and Neptune at the very beginning of the sign of Aries right now, Jupiter entering Cancer, and Mercury is in the sign of Cancer right now as well. They're still in a conjunction. Remember, they just made a conjunction at 29 degrees of Gemini on Sunday, and then Mercury left Gemini, entered Cancer today on Monday. Jupiter leaves Gemini, enters Cancer. They're still in a conjunction together, although now it's in a different sign, and now they're also in basically an exact cardinal square with Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries. All week, you guys, there is likely to be something about between the combination. So we've got 2 like heavy hitting squares going on, a square between Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and Jupiter and Mercury in Cancer, cardinal square, and then a fixed square between Mars, who's actually ruling the position of Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So actually these squares are tied together. And it ties into the trine as well, because Jupiter is the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius, where our full moon is occurring right now. So all this energy is like really very tied into, I feel like, one kind of singular purpose, which has to do with blocks to growth, expansion, or limitations somehow being suddenly exploded or shattered or removed throughout the course of the week. This entire week to me feels like, again, something taking a wrecking ball to whatever has been preventing growth from happening. So, if that's a relationship, if it's a mindset, if it's a habit or a pattern or an addiction as well, like anything, and it could be hitting, you should check and see where you have Leo and Taurus, or where Mars and Uranus are falling in terms of your house placement in your chart. Also Aries and Cancer, that's where the Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune square happening. So it could give you a better idea to know, what resistances we might be up against and what might need to be like surrendered or sacrificed or removed or released in order for that cosmic push for growth and expansion to happen. There's definitely a pressure building up throughout the course of the week, and something about growth, something about forward movement and new beginnings, and what has been preventing that from happening in the way that, for whatever reason, is like cosmically ordained at this point in time. It's just it going through a process of breakdown, it seems like, somehow this week. So I would say explosive breakthroughs could be a theme this week, and we're going to be talking about that in the next video with the full moon, and really probably in our video for, well, definitely in our video for the weekend as well, because this is how the week is laid out. Okay, we've got Jupiter entering Cancer, setting up that square with Saturn and Neptune on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, we've got this grand fire trine / full moon in Sag that is playing out, and then Saturday and Sunday we've got the exact square happening between Mars and Uranus in the fixed signs, plus whatever else is going on with the moon and the planets that are kind of on the outskirts of the big events right now. So we just have a very energized, dynamic week. Again, like, it could be bringing a level of impulsivity or rebelliousness or chaos. Anxiety could also be quite high, and things are just sort of primed to be flying off the handle a little bit. But ultimately, it's all for the purpose of removing blockages to growth, whether we see it that way or not. Eventually in the future, I think that somehow we will. So let's talk specifically now about Monday and where we're at as we get the day started, move throughout the course of the day. Things are going to be shifting as the moon changes signs, but we do start the day on Monday with the moon still in the sign of Scorpio. That's where the moon has been throughout the course of the weekend. And coming into an opposition with Uranus and Taurus before entering Sagittarius and beginning to set us up with our full moon energy that's going to be building throughout the, I'd say, second half of the day-ish on Monday, and all day on Tuesday, and then, as I said, Wednesday. That is our full moon energy. So before we enter the Sag moon, full moon buildup on Monday, though, we do have the opposition going on from the moon in the sign of Scorpio opposite Uranus in the sign of Taurus. Of course, that also means the moon in the sign of Scorpio is going to be squaring Mars in the sign of Leo. We could get some like tremors a little bit on Monday of what it perhaps might be that is up for change or an implosion or something as we move into the later part of the week. There could be a little bit maybe of some foresight coming through somehow in terms of what it is that maybe is approaching that breaking point or is going to require some type of sudden or dynamic change to be going on. But the moon opposite Uranus can just inherently bring sort of an unsettled feeling. It can also make things a little bit chaotic. It can bring unexpected changes to plans, maybe some anxiety or restlessness going on. There could just be also like something different or unusual about the morning, because that's when this energy hits. As I said, as we move throughout the day into the afternoon, the moon enters Sag. You know, the first thing the moon's going to do though, you guys, before really getting into this Sag energy and building emotional tension towards the full moon, the first thing that it's going to do in the very early degrees of a fire sign is trine Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries. So Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries, that conjunction that we've got going on over there, which I feel like has a lot to do. It's a very transitional energy. This is really kind of like a detached from reality, like breaking down the constructs of things. Like things are a little bit all over the place and unclear and like non-standard and not operating according to like any specific blueprint. It's definitely like a breakdown and transition type of energy, okay, that we've got with those two planets together in the early degrees of Aries. Again, with that energy being emphasized 2 ways on Monday as we enter the week by the moon in Sagittarius forming a trine, and then Jupiter and Mercury in Cancer forming a square. The concept or the emphasis on something falling apart, something falling away, something coming to an end could be quite strong on Monday. And this is also a draining energy. It's happening in the sign of Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is our energy, like our action-oriented nature, our assertiveness, our motivation, our willpower. With Saturn and Neptune in the conjunction there, that is really like limiting, restraining, and breaking down our like energy and our will to like be super active and be super motivated and be super enthusiastic and assertive about getting ahead and moving forward and stuff. It can break down energy, and as a result we can feel kind of like sluggish and tired and drained and withdrawn and burnt out when we've got Saturn and Neptune in that conjunction in the sign of Aries being activated, you know, specifically by the moon, but also expanded by this Jupiterian influence and squared by Mercury as well. This is kind of both like a mental and emotional sluggishness that could be causing some irritation. And definitely another thing that I don't recommend engaging in throughout the course of this week is like being too vocal or critical of other people's like creative efforts or creative self-expression or their fantasies or ideas that they want to tell you all about. This is a week where people are not going to be receiving criticism, constructive criticism, any type of criticism well, most specifically in the context of like their personal output somehow. Even if it's just like an idea or like especially any type of like creative endeavor or anything like that, it could go from 0 to like 1,000 real quick. People could just be absolutely snapping, and I do not recommend and I'm saying this because Mars and Chiron, and we're going to get there. I'm going to explain this more as we get through the part. I actually wrote this later in my notes, but it just popped into my head, so I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But Mars and Chiron in a trine this week, while we have this Mars-Uranus square and this energy in the sign of Aries as well. And Mars is also in Leo right now. And Mars and Leo can be very like ego-oriented, like real wrapped up in that, like a very close identification with the ego and with the self. And if people are feeling, especially coming from a more unconscious place, that their ego is being wounded with the Mars-Chiron trine in some type of way, Mars-Uranus and square, like the reaction is not likely to be controlled. We can put it that way, okay? So, you know, and that's not necessarily, I'm not putting like if this is a good thing or a bad thing, you know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of cases throughout the course of the week where the necessary breaking point occurs and actually it ends up having been some type of a good thing, because that was what was needed to like break the habit, break the pattern, break the cycle, break the bond, or whatever is necessary in order for like true healing or true growth or true progress or true, you know, momentum or something like that to be able to begin to occur, which is the ultimate goal of this energy and the way that all of this is like functioning and coming together right now. But yeah, I just think that people are going to be fragile, delicate, especially in regards to the ego, okay, as we move through the week. So perhaps something to be aware of. Anyways, back to where we are at in the progression of energy as we begin Monday and head throughout the course of the day. So we do have this lunar trine from the moon in Sag to Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries, zoned out. This could also be, though, some type of just like very direct focus towards a creative effort or a creative endeavor or some type of image or vision or fantasy or dream that we're just feeling kind of, you know, one track mind, a bit consumed by, to the point of maybe disengaging and like shutting out the greater world at large. There is something, though, about, I would say, disassociating from reality with this, not wanting to work, not wanting to be involved, feeling the inner pull maybe to avoid or escape something, whether it is just really wanting to disengage or being like so intensely engaged in something that everything else sort of falls away. So in terms of the lunar situation, what's going on with the moon on Monday, I think that those are the general vibes that are likely to be coming in there. Now we need to talk about this Jupiter into Cancer transit that we've got going on Monday. This is bringing a vibe shift. Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer, so this is like a supportive and beneficial influence that is moving in right now, especially, of course, in terms of the things that Cancer represents: the home, the family, like a general sense of internal well-being could be a bit bolstered now with Jupiter entering the sign of Cancer. Jupiter, though, in Cancer does immediately, as I've said, hit that square, and this brings in the give and the take dynamic and dimension of things. When we have a square going on between Saturn, which limits and, you know, holds things back and creates boundaries, and we have Jupiter as the other like note in that square energy dynamic, which is about expansion and growth. It's like, yes, there's growth, yes, there's success, but it has to come through some type of refinement, paring back, limitation, boundary. It's like a slow process, you know? It's like Saturn and Sagittarius energy. It's like it gets there, like it becomes great, you know, it becomes wise, like it becomes successful, but it's generally a bit of a slow process because there just is a stronger requirement for things to be tested and precise and just like on point in order to move forward. Now, that could be one way of describing it. Another way of describing it would be, I mean, Saturn is the past, Saturn is tradition. Saturn is also karma. Like, this also represents a need to like break through some type of karmic cycle in order to move forward, to let go of something from the past in order to expand, right? But that's the dynamic. That's the give and take. That's the interchange. There needs to be something that is like let go and released in order for this growth and expansion to be able to take place. And then when we also add into it the Neptunian fusion, the Neptunian energy as well, that is testing our grip on reality and our ability to translate ideas into practice. Okay, so that's another like dimension of this. It's like, yes, you've got this grand vision and this lofty idea, but how does it actually become something real, and what needs to be shifted, altered, changed, released in order to like allow that true expansion and growth in alignment with that greater potential to take place. I also think that this influence is probably going to spontaneously end up in a lot of people kind of like altering their perspective or deciding to change their approach to things somehow as we move throughout the course of the week this week as well. I do think that this is going to be a pretty like palpable vibe that we see represented or reflected back to us in situations and relationships, interpersonal dynamics, and whatever circumstances that we've got going on out there throughout the course of the week. Like that theme of something needing to end, like a change of guard literally going on. It's crazy because Jupiter actually hits that 1 degree of the sign of Cancer, which is setting up this square with Mercury is conjunct Jupiter, which is tying our mind into it even more and making it even more personal. But the square to Saturn and Neptune, and as I said, that is bringing this like give and take energy. But 1 degree of the sign of Cancer, that Sabian symbol is on a ship. The sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. So even the symbolism with Jupiter at that degree is talking about a change of guard going on. And that's exactly to me what that aspect is representing as well. And that Mars-Uranus situation with that full moon in Sag, that's also the grand fire trine that we've got going on this week. It feels like a change of guard or burning the whole thing down. You know what I mean? Like this feels like it's going to happen. Like there is a shift underway, and anything that is preventing or blocking that from succeeding and happening is going to come to some type of ending, dynamic ending as we move throughout the course of the week. It's so crazy too because the fact that Saturn and Neptune and also Chiron are in Aries right now, which is Mars's sign, while Mars makes this square to Uranus and Taurus, and also Pluto's in the sign of Aquarius, ruled by Uranus in this square, which of course is also like endings and beginnings, death and rebirth, transformation. And then we've got this Jupiter energy that is literally calling for the exact same thing, like on a ship, sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. It's very energetically indicated right now, you guys. It's coming through in a multitude of different ways. So, all of that being said, that is our situation up until this next transit that I'm going to bring into the party right now, which is the Mars-Chiron trine that we've got going on. This is also exact this week. On Monday, actually, Mars moves, changes a degree at some point throughout the day and hits the exact degree where Chiron is. This transit will be exact for the next 2 days and will be exact for our full moon in Sag. The full moon in Sag is going to, it's not exact. I think it's like 3 or 4 degrees out of exact degree alignment of the specific trine, but it's like 3 or 4 degrees out of exact specific alignment with the trine. Like it's close, it's tight, it is alive, and it is fiery. And so this Mars Chiron energy, aside from the Jupiter, Mercury, Neptune, Saturn square, is another very palpable, significant, maybe like noticeable energy that we've got going on this week. There's probably going to be a lot of things happening this week because there's just all of these simultaneous like significant aspects that are probably going to be making their presence known. So for all of these variations of energy to be manifesting, it's indicating to me that there's probably just like a variety of events and scenarios and circumstances and situations playing out this week, probably a lot happening. Or there could also just be like one big event or situation that goes on that all of this is wrapped up into and expressed within somehow. But We do have Mars in the sign of Leo, exactly trining Chiron in the sign of Aries this week. And specifically on Monday, this Chiron influence is extra emphasized because of the placement of Venus as well. Venus happens to be at 3 degrees of the sign of Taurus on Monday to get our week started, the same day that Mars moves into exact to the degree trine with Chiron. 3 degrees of the sign of Taurus is a very specific degree in the sky. It's known as the Chiron point. This is the point in the sky where Chiron was discovered, and it holds and houses all of the same archetypal energies and characteristics as Chiron himself. So we have a double dose of Chiron energy that is going on Monday to get our week started. And considering we're talking about this double dose being brought to us by Mars and Venus, the masculine and the feminine dynamic, there could be something specifically narrowing in on like relationship dynamics somehow that are represented through this Chiron energy. I do think, again, things that can't or that shouldn't go on, that shouldn't go any further, that shouldn't take another step beyond this point are just not going to. There could also be some sense of inner healing or wholeness or integration that assists or facilitates a process of breaking some addiction or pattern or attraction that has been keeping us stuck, or that has been toxic or self-sabotaging in some way, that has been detaching us from the truth of our own value or our own worth. But wounding, healing, learning, ultimately perhaps even mastering in the context of self versus others, the self and relationship dynamics could be highly relevant this week. Could also be some things to do with like fertility for some reason also, because we're talking about Venus and Mars being highlighted in the context of that Chiron energy and Jupiter entering the sign of Cancer. This is the mother, this is the womb. Okay, so I don't know, there could be something highlighted having to do with that as well. But I also do think that this could represent, especially with the Jupiter-Mercury square to Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries, and then we've got just like all of this strong Chiron energy happening. Difficult losses could be a theme on Monday and all week. It is something that needs to go for something else to begin to come in, and there could be some like painful endings that go on. Or this could also represent very much the end of a painful cycle that has been keeping us trapped somehow as well. And it could represent some type of very active, dynamic, unexpected, maybe drastic sense of liberation. The lightning striking the tower, you guys, that is suddenly no longer being trapped, contained, withheld within something. It's this free fall. And that's what Uranus energy does as well. It makes the changes for us that we haven't been able to make for ourselves, but oftentimes it can be like, especially in the sign of Taurus, this is dismantling the comfort zone in a very like unexpected, maybe even a bit disturbing type of way. But we're going to be out of whatever it was that was keeping us trapped or holding us back. So we'll see how that all goes. Now, let's move on and talk more specifically about the incoming of this Mars-Uranus square. And this is going to be an evolving discussion. We're going to talk about it more in association with its impact on our full moon energy on Wednesday. And then it will come exact Saturday into Sunday this weekend. So it will be our feature highlight of the Friday video as well. So we've got a lot more Mars-Uranus that we're going to talk about. So I'm not going to get too in depth into this energy today, but it's going to be coloring and characterizing the way that things are going all week. And whenever we are dealing with a harsh aspect between Mars and Uranus, this is just going to be a like volatile, explosive energy, impulsive, reckless, restless, very rebellious. There could, as I've mentioned, be just some culmination or some spontaneous, random, like big event that goes on This is an accident-prone energy, and this is tension being pulled or stretched to a snapping point for sure. People are just probably not going to be having it, I would imagine, especially if they are like unconscious of this energy and just, you know, kind of floating around out there this week in the midst of the square happening between Mercury and Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune as well. Like that dynamic of things also, it can put us in a bit of a la-la land. Like that's dissociated from reality. Like that is being caught in some Mercury and Jupiter together, not to get sidetracked, but just to like re-emphasize if I didn't emphasize it enough when I initially talked about that. Mercury and Jupiter together, that's like being caught in our own grand vision of something. Saturn and Neptune together is like totally like it can be very like incoherent, because Saturn is the rules and the order and the structure and the boundaries and the like the framework of things, and Neptune makes that cloudy, makes that hazy, makes that like non-corporeal and like just very intangible. It breaks it down. It's I always feel like when I'm talking about like the Saturn and Neptune dynamic together, it's like trying to build a structure like at the foot of the ocean when the tide keeps coming in, you know. It's like things are just not very stable, not very grounded, not very sturdy, and not very solidified in reality. So with that energy present, now I also have been talking about the tremendous manifestation energy associated with Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries, because in the higher octaves of that energy, it does help us to ground and root the ideal, the fantasy, the dream, the vision into the physical material plane and be able to create a strategy of how to build the dream into the reality. And it's an energy that we are going to be working with actually for like the course of the next year. And I always feel like when we have a long-term transit going on, the origin of that transit is likely to be the messiest. By the time that we get back, because Saturn and Neptune are both going to retrograde, go back into Pisces, and essentially they're going to be traveling in a proximity of one another through May of 2026. At which point in time, Saturn will finally move forward through his Aries transit and separate from Neptune to a point where he's like no longer under the Neptunian influence. But literally, like over the course of the next year, there is something about like learning to work with this Saturn Neptune energy. And I do think that we're going to have a much more refined vision and tangible approach to manifesting, grounding that vision into the 3D reality by the time that we get to May of next year. But as this is starting, first of all, I think that it's going to be more apparent in what it's breaking down in terms of the foundations, the structures, the control systems, rules, authority, tradition, convention, like all the things that Saturn represents, like from the past, like some type of disintegration of these things. And then it can create also a sort of just like spill out, like spillover, especially when Saturn and Neptune maybe move back into the sign of Pisces. I don't know. I'm getting like way ahead of myself right now. But anyways, these two planets are not, I don't feel like, doing a super good job right now of maintaining like order and maintaining structure and helping us to really know what's real and what is not. And as a result of that, the Mercury-Jupiter square to that dynamic where it's like we've got this big vision and we believe anything is possible. It's like, but what's even real? Like, how do you know? Like, how are you going to do that when like you don't even know what you're doing at all right now, or like what's going on, or like what the rules are, or you know, staying on task, staying on schedule. If you've also been having a hard time with like self-discipline lately and like doing like being on the daily grind, that is also not super like energetically supported when we have Neptune and Saturn in this conjunction in the early degrees of the sign of Aries. So that was a whole long tangent that I wasn't planning about the Saturn-Neptune situation that we've got going on, but hopefully it just helps you understand the dynamic of this square a little bit better. Because when we also then bring that energy into what is happening this week with the full moon and what is happening with the Mars-Uranus square, you can see how the pressure is just kind of all over the place, and the need to end some way of being, to release some cycle, suddenly, makes a whole bunch of sense. And with the Chiron element there, again, being so emphasized and so strong, there could be an element of pain or wounding that is somehow involved in it. And people are, I think, generally going to have very little impulse control. Again, like Saturn and Neptune together in the sign of Aries. Saturn in the sign of Aries, this is self-control. This is self-discipline. This is a strategic approach to forward movement. But with Neptune there, that distorts that energy. It breaks down that energy. It inhibits that energy from doing the thing, like from doing what it does. So, and then with the Jupiter Mercury, again, it's like, do not criticize my ideas. Do not criticize my vision. Do not criticize my creative concepts. Like, I will crash out on you. Like, I will spaz. Like, I am at the breaking point. And if you don't want me to unleash all the fury of the gods onto you, you should turn around and walk the other way and not say another word. So if you are in the mind to perhaps avoid unexpected confrontations and scenarios like that, it's a good week to Jupiter and Mercury in the sign of Cancer, you guys, like, keep our feelings and our thoughts maybe a bit in the shell, maybe a bit contained, maybe, we've got a lot to say. That's another thing, like Mercury and Jupiter together, that's a big mouth. And in the sign of Cancer, that's like, let me tell you all about how I feel about everything. And we probably just should try, maybe not to do that. Maybe this is a good time to have a good conversation with ourselves about how we feel about everything, or write down maybe how we feel about everything. But so that's just my opinion. But I would perhaps avoid, especially like known crazy people or those with a understood short temper or bad attitude. This energy is not going to be helping them at all. It is like a my way or the highway type of energy. Mars square Uranus is that way. It's like, okay, you don't want to do it my way. You don't see it my way. You don't think that this, what I'm doing, Mars in the sign of Leo, like, is the way to go. Okay, then you can take the highway or I'll take the highway, but it's going to be my way or the highway, one way or the other way. And especially, authority figures and close relationships could be the focus here as well. So, and as I said, as we move through the week, I'm going to be talking much more about that specific energy and the additional ways that it could play out and manifest for us. But I do think the whole combination, right? Like, let's go back to putting all of the pieces together. The Mercury, Jupiter squaring Saturn and Neptune in Cancer and Aries. And then the Chiron trine with the full moon there. And then the Mars-Uranus square, like that whole combination right there, and such the emphasis on the Mars energy, because we have Mars like always. We've got Mars featured very strongly in a trine, grand trine and fire to the full moon. We've got Mars squaring Uranus, like the primary planetary, force in that dynamic. And then we've got all of this energy in the sign of Aries that is also being implicated in the ongoings throughout the course of the week. And Aries is ruled by Mars. So what's happening in Aries is like wrapped up into whatever's going on with Mars. So I do think it's like crazy making, okay? I think this is like a crazy making energy type of week, kind of light things on fire type of week. Destructive weather and storms, real strong storms that maybe come out of nowhere. Also like earthquakes, lightning strikes, and specifically wildfires could be a thing this week. We're talking about Mars in Leo. That's a very heated, fiery energy for sure. We're talking about the fire planet in the sign ruled by the sun, and then in the square to Uranus and Taurus, that is earth stuff. Okay, so Uranus and Taurus, which could bring like I don't know, destructive earth type of storm type of situations being harshly aspected by Mars in Leo, and that's all the fire. I would urge caution this week, you guys, with anything to do with fires or hot or sharp objects if you can. The trine to Chiron and Aries with Mars there is, you know, emphasizing perhaps this theme as well. Another way that this could be playing out is people could be like purging or purifying or breaking things down through the element of fire. That is a positive use of fire as we have this like dynamic coming together this week. But again, like I urge excessive caution and care when utilizing fire. Like I think a lot of people are going to be having, you know, like their controlled yard burns and stuff like that. I bet there's a lot of those going on around me throughout the course of the weekend. And of course, you know, with the way that this energy is going on, they could easily get out of control. So if you are doing any type of controlled burn or using fire to break things down somehow, which could definitely be happening with Mars and Neptune in the sign of Aries, ruled by Mars and square to Uranus. Just make sure you're keeping a really good eye on it and practicing proper fire safety things. Okay, so that's my basic take on the week, on what we have going on to start the week. Moving into Tuesday, this is really just kind of more of the same that we had going on Monday. Although the moon is further through the sign of Sag now and is no longer activating the Saturn, Neptune, and Aries situation, just moving closer into the opposition with the sun. Chiron and Mars are exactly trine all day in Aries on Tuesday. Jupiter and Mercury are still in a conjunction, still in a near exact square to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Mars is still 2 degrees out of exact square to Uranus in Taurus on Tuesday as well. So we do have a very similar energy going on Tuesday this week as we did on Monday, but things, I would imagine tension is just continuing to build to some extent. People are at, as I've said, you know, enough times in this video, a near breaking point and just not really wanting to hear it. Okay, so I would, as I said earlier, I think it's a good idea to kind of be a bit self-contained in terms of our verbal expression of thoughts, ideas, and opinions today, especially if it is at odds or contradicts somebody else's vision or creative output, creative self-expression somehow. This could absolutely send them over the edge, especially with Mars in the sign of Leo. This is like ego wounds, like not being able to handle it, not being able to tolerate it. And with the Mercury-Jupiter situation and this grand vision, you know, we believe that anything is possible, but then the Saturn-Neptune situation is like, oh, yeah, you tell me what's real. If that's real, then you prove it. And then we've got Mars and Uranus over here that's like, wait, what did you just say? What did you ask me to do? Oh, heck no, I'm taking action, you know, so that's kind of like the escalation of things. I would expect heated clashes and sudden change and sudden endings to definitely be featured strongly this week. I think it's so crazy that we have Jupiter, this expansive force. This is, you know, the growth-oriented nature of things at 1 Cancer on a ship. Sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. Like literally a change of guard being indicated in order for some type of growth, expansion, or progress to go on. We also have the position of Mars and Chiron as we move through our week this week. On Monday, Mars is at 26 degrees of Leo to start the day. That Sabine symbol is after a heavy storm, a rainbow appears. And then Mars moves to 27 degrees of Leo, which is the exact degree for the trine to Chiron, and that Sabine symbol is daybreak, the luminescence of dawn in the eastern horizon. So new beginnings being indicated. And then the position of Chiron right now, I love this symbol, 27 Aries. Through imagination, a lost opportunity is regained, which is also this like new lease on life type of energy. And then we've got Saturn and Neptune together, Neptune ruling the imagination and being so activated also in the very beginning of Aries, which is the Mars influence, which is the forward momentum, the spark of life, the new beginning. But Saturn is the past and Saturn is the end as well. We also have Mercury at 2 degrees of Cancer on Monday. That Sabian symbol is a man on a magic carpet, observes vast vistas below. So trying to maintain a broader perspective this week, I also think is advisable, as we do come up against the square energy. Things may be coming to a head. Things could kind of just, again, like be bit all over the place or unpredictable or just very dynamic and anxiety provoking or changeable. But remember, as I said, to get this report started, actively, consciously engaging in creative change is the offset, okay, to this particular setting that we are on cosmically as we move through the week this week. The more that we can actively participate in our process of change, the less universe is going to have to intervene to make those changes and get us to where that's just how this energy functions. It brings change. And so, and Mars is action. Okay. So if we are bringing change, then we are in alignment with this energy, and change doesn't necessarily need to be brought to us maybe to the same degree that it would have otherwise. So there could be a bit of an energetic antidote to the mania that this week could feel like out there. So that's what I'm going to say for the astrology, you guys. Let's talk about the tarot for a minute. This is a little bit of a strange tarot message today. It is referencing perhaps some doubts that could be coming up, like our faith being shaken perhaps in some way, maybe feeling like we are lacking inspiration, or it could bring up a lot of questions about how certain things could be possible, or if the work that we're putting in now is ever going to move us towards the outcome that we hope to achieve by whatever our efforts are leading to, or the culmination of our efforts could lead to at this point in time. But we have, okay, so we've got the Four of Wands, and then we've got the Star in reverse. I feel like that's like doubting the stability of things, doubting the security, shaking foundations maybe, or it could also represent a lack of inspiration or faith, maybe in what has been representing a commitment or an investment or stability or security in our lives somehow. We also, though, have the Eight of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. This combination of cards, it makes me feel like there could be questions or doubts in relation to the effort and the work that we've been putting into maintaining the structure or the stability or the commitment or the investment in something, and if it is ever truly going to pay off in terms of what we had originally dreamed, envisioned, or idealized it to be. Is the worth or the value of the thing what I thought it always was, and is that the thing that's truly going to make me happy and be fulfilling to me? On the back of the deck, we have the Ace of Cups. So it's either it is about this emotional fulfillment somehow. Either, questions or doubts coming up because we're realizing maybe the eggs that we've been putting our basket into is not what we thought it was, or is not bringing or providing the level of emotional or soul fulfillment that we thought that it would, or even inner security or safety or feelings of comfort. And we also have the Moon here also. It's the unknown, not sure, doubts, are things what I thought they were? If I keep going in this direction, if I keep working on this thing, am I going to end up at what I originally was promised that I would get? Or is this all some type of like facade or illusion and not ultimately what I thought that it was? And so, yeah, I guess there could be questions coming up. But with the Ace of Cups on the back of the deck, you know, this is either a process of some emotional renewal that's going on, like because we've got two aces here. We've got the Ace of Pentacles in reverse with these cards. So it's like, is it what I thought it was? Is it going to truly be fulfilling to me? I'm having questions, I'm having doubts, or is my faith just a little bit shaken right now? Am I lacking inspiration? Am I having questions come up about whether or not this thing will ever truly come into fruition and bring me the emotional fulfillment that I seek? So I guess I'm just sort of like going in circles with this, but that's what I feel like this is indicating. There is something maybe that we've been committed to or invested in, or that has been stable, or that has, you know, functioned to like balance us out in some type of way, partnership dynamic, something like that. Maybe lacking faith in it, not sure about it, doubts coming up. If I keep working towards it, am I going to get the value and fulfillment that I originally was, you know, under the impression would be the outcome? Or is it really just some type of illusion? That's what I got. That's what I think that that's what this energy is telling me right here. So that's what I have to say. Maybe that applies to some of you guys out there. I do think also, you know, we are in this Gemini cycle right now, which is all about secrets revealed, figuring out the truth of situations, this X-ray vision, this penetrating insight, and then reevaluating and making changes as a result of what we discover was hiding in the shadows. New moon in Gem, trining Pluto. Now we have Mars and Uranus building into a square. The lid is being blown off of whatever maybe secrecy was going on, or whatever has been bubbling to the surface that is now needs to be known or revealed somehow. It could be a crazy week, you guys. All right, we're going to get one more piece of guidance or advice now. Synchronicity card. I'm asking God, Spirit, Universe to deliver us something that would be very beneficial. Okay. Dream is our card that we've got. I actually just had like so many cards come out, but this was the one that turned up on the pile. So this is our message for the day as we get the week started. Which, remember what I was saying earlier about that moon in Sagittarius trining Saturn and Neptune, that it is a good energy to, like, people may find themselves like so like tuned in to a daydream or a fantasy or an ideal or a vision that it's kind of like everything else is sort of falling away. This card says dream and shout for joy, all ye who are upright in heart. Psalms 32:11. Your biggest joy will be in the knowledge that you have overcome setbacks and disappointments. Be persistent, believe in your dreams, and continue going forward. God does not give us a dream without also giving us the means to attain that dream, which is literally what this entire next year is about with this Saturn-Neptune situation that I like went off on that tangent about earlier in the square to Jupiter. There are big dreams that are finding their way to us right now. And again, this is about what we need to overcome, what we need to release, what we need to discover within ourselves, what we need to heal from in order to be able to successfully move forward. This is removing blockages to growth that have diminished our ability to develop into like our own potential, which is always going to attract a more fulfilling life experience. The more in alignment with our own expression of potential we can be as individuals, the more abundance and the more fulfillment we are just inherently going to attract and experience as a result of the universe matching the like output that we are providing. So this is a time, you guys, as I have been saying, and it's not just me. I feel like most energy readers right now are kind of on this very same page, but we really do have the opportunity to become more, to translate the vision into the reality over this next upcoming couple of years here. If we can get out of our own way, like overcome some of these issues, your biggest joy will be in the knowledge that you have overcome setbacks and disappointments. We have Mars in the sign of Leo right now, the sign of the sun, true expression of joy in the square to Uranus. So I don't know, you guys, this is probably a very on point message, and that's what I have for our Astro weather report for today, you guys. I hope you liked the video. Message from the stars, message from the cards. If you did like it, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, you guys, share it with your friends if you think that they would also enjoy this type of astrology content. Leave me comments. I'm super grateful for your input, for your contributions to my channel. If you guys are having experiences that line up with what I'm talking about in these videos, don't hesitate. Drop a comment, let me know in my comment section below. That's really valuable information to me. I really appreciate it. If you want to see this whole board right here, I take pictures of it and post them in a Facebook group that I have linked in my description box below. And come back with me, you guys, on Wednesday. As you already know, I'll be back to talk about this full moon in Sag / Grand Trine and Fire that we have coming up and all that it might be bringing with it. So you should come back to. You don't want to miss it. I will see you next time, you guys. Have a great start to your week, and until then, bye.